Welcome to part 3. We're thrilled that you want to continue listening to the podcast with us. Let's dive in and pick up where we left off.
Google and me personally. That's why user-centrics is so close to my heart.
Really, really cool. Coming back about the topic of tools used by startups and how to design your startup from the basis, basically, and the potential of growth. Is this something you check out as a business angel when you're acting as a business angel? Like, hey, how do you actually aim to structure your business for this kind of setup?
Here's also some things that I learned over time.
Yeah.
In the past, a couple of years back, people were always trying to build a platform. That was the thing, right?
Yeah.
We're building this platform for this environment. And that takes a lot of time, at least it used to. And then you're building this huge platform, but you're not generating any revenue. You're not really getting customer feedback because you're just building.
Mm-hmm.
And my preference now is that someone's just building a very small single use case product that has the potential of attracting customers very quickly, getting feedback on that. And then from there, once you've established, okay, this is a product, means someone is willing to pay for it, you roll it out and then you add stuff later and make it a platform.
Yeah. Okay.
I prefer that approach, and I would rather look for something like that.
And all this is in a bit of connected of being aware of the supporting tools that are out there, supporting infrastructure, how to build something up. And when I take a bit of my personal experience, what I can see in universities and stuff like that, if students learn about these kind of options that they have only in the business context, not really in the university context, in the wider scale. And I think this is a bit of an educational thing, something that's happening in Germany in general. And when we're talking about something like, hey, we have Munich as a startup hub, we have Berlin as startup hubs, everything connected together. We're working with AI Nation to make this all things are connecting. And there's still the bit of urgency to change Germany's strategic approach towards how to build businesses. And it's all connected to these things like, hey, what is available for students at universities? What's available for children that to know about startups? What's all about that? Yeah, it's a lot of basic educational content, basically. That's kind of out there, but not really plugged into, let's say, the wider society. Yeah. There's a bit of a change now in how I see it in the past 3-4 years.
Yeah, there is.
How do you see that? Because also in your book, you have these recommendations at the very end, how Germany should approach topics, standard things like bureaucratic things, whatever what. But how would you summarize the needs and what you would love to change? Just like if you could just snap for a specific thing where you think, okay, now it could get better. In regard of the entrepreneurial mindset and how you approach things, thinking about a fail culture and stuff like that. It's a very complex topic, how society works and how to make a change. To make it maybe easier for you to answer that, because why I'm coming from that direction, I just had an interview with someone asking me about resilience of ecosystems.
Yeah.
Like how can a society, the German economy basically be resilient towards something like COVID and whatever what, and how it can adopt. And I didn't really have a good answer because I'm not quite sure if the system here is kind of resilient or not. Because we can see something changing now and how everything is going to react. 15 years of experience with Google, seeing what happens here in Germany, seeing what's happening in the US, how things work out, and how Google changed their approach towards startups as well in the past few years in Germany now. How would you still support all of these points at the very end of the book that you had there? Do you see changes in these aspects? This would be an approach I would really interested in.
Okay, that's a very broad question, but a couple of things come to my mind. So first of all, I think it's interesting. I was at a event from TUMEI and CDTM recently, and I forgot the name of the professor. I'm terribly sorry, but he said something that really resonated with me. The IT, when you study information technology in Germany, it's associated with the maths part of the university.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's different in the US. It's part of the arts and whatever departments. So the approach of to IT and in informatic in Germany is much more theoretical. And when you look at what kind of businesses have evolved in the US from in the IT space, you see Apple, Google, Microsoft, all these companies, huge now. And how many IT companies have been built here? There's maybe SAP, right?
Yeah.
With not the most sexy software to offer, but it's a viable business. It's great. It's good that we have them.
Yeah.
But just that tells you a lot about the mindset of people who go into IT in the US and study, and they get into touch with business ideas and models much earlier than all these theoretical students here in Germany. So that's one thing I would like to change or see a change where it's just much more practical, because Germany is great at inventing stuff. We invented MP3, okay? But who made a business out of it? Apple.
Yeah.
Okay. I know Fraunhofer Institute is getting royalties for that, but it's not as much as Apple is earning with it. We did a lot of groundwork in AI. We even had the first self-driving car. So we're really good in inventing stuff, but we're bad in productizing. And that brings me to the second point I want to make. The dominant businesses that are huge in Germany all were started like 150 years ago. Automotive, chemistry, all these businesses. And that was a time where Germany was really entrepreneurial. And we lost some of that. So we need more entrepreneurs, we need more founders, and we need to bridge the gap between startups and large corporations. What Unternehmertum is doing pretty successfully, bringing corporates and startups together here in Munich, acting as first customers, acting as co-developers. But we have a gap between startups and large corporations, and they need to get closer together. That's another thing I would like to see in Germany. And then lastly, when it comes to Google as a business, we've become again much more agile than maybe in the past, and I hope that continues. And yes, I'm very much hoping that in Germany we will even work closer with more resources in the ecosystem next year. We're building a plan. Can't say too much right now.
Yeah.
But my goal is to do even more for the ecosystem, because I think in the long run, it'll be a huge ROI if we, if we catch the next wave of unicorns and they all end up on Google Cloud. It's going to be massive ROI. It's a bit like betting on many bands or rappers and acts. Everyone gets a Vorschuss, gets some money to produce an album. Only one or two are going to chart, but those are going to be your fund returners. That's the whole concept of the VC business, right? You bet on many companies because obviously some will fail. But in the end, if you have one or two successful startups that are 10x, they pay for all the rest who were not so successful.
Yeah. But I think what you just highlighted it in what's going to happen in the next years, from Google side, for instance, we have OpenAI coming to Munich. Yeah, we have cooperations here happening in Munich and Berlin. Although there's a lot of competition always in between Munich and Berlin, we're working together. Yeah, there's something I really hate, by the way, on LinkedIn, like Berlin is doing, Munich is doing better than Berlin now, startup wise. I think that's horrible to pull that out, because I think it's working together, both growing. Yeah, and this makes the whole thing interesting, and also other cities as well that we incorporate. Heilbronn, for instance, the EPI for AI stuff. Darmstadt, Hamburg as well.
Look, here's the thing. I would counter argue that.
Yeah.
You should work together, but a bit of competition usually doesn't hurt, right? And the strength of Germany has always been a decentralized economy. I mean, yes, we have had hubs like the Ruhrgebiet, and maybe Stuttgart area for automotive, that kind of stuff. But you can only sustain so many startup hubs. I know that the Startup Factory initiative from the government, where Unternehmertum is basically the blueprint for more of these hubs to evolve, is a good thing. And it's trying to replicate the distribution of the startup economy, or the distribution of the German economy, by building more of these hubs. But you can only have so many hotspots. And the question is, how many hotspots can an economy like Germany sustain?
Yeah.
I would argue it's probably not 10. It's maybe more than 2.
Yeah.
Somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Right. And then again, competition does help everyone get better. If it wasn't for OpenAI, I don't know where we would be at Google with our AI products.
Yeah.
And it's good that many people are coming to Munich. Other companies are coming to Munich. For us, it's an important hub. But yes, I would like to see Heilbronn and maybe Köln-Aachen and 1 or 2 others to be successful and compete, but maybe also in a frenemy kind of way, where you collaborate in some areas, but you compete in others, because otherwise, there's not the need of becoming really, really good is not large enough.
Yeah, I really understand where you're coming from. We had this situation with that's a bit of a personal approach or opinion, like with a strong connection to the universities. You have a bit of a lack of competition in regard of how a business would work.
Yeah.
In Germany, I think it has its plus points. We have an amazing talent pool, but still the lack of competition is an issue
amongst universities.
This kind of stuff. Yes. May I dare you, how many hubs would you prefer? Like you said, 10 is too much, 2 is ideal. Which would be your best picks?
Yeah, it's not so much about what I prefer. I think it's just a question about how much is sustainable.
Yeah.
Because you need a couple of things that need to come together.
Yes.
So, for example, when we still don't really know how life came into existence, right? But we're pretty sure that a couple of things need to come together. You need water, you need some proteins, maybe some warmth, some energy, that kind of stuff. And the same goes for a startup hub. You need founders, talent from universities, right? You need money from VCs. I mean, money is pretty global, can come from anywhere. But it's good if the VC is close to the startups. Universities play a big role there. And then you need corporates acting as first customers. So the question really is, at how many, life might have started at different places on Earth, but it pretty much seems like
there was a
hotspot.
Yeah.
So the question is, how many hotspots with all these things coming together for startups can an economy the size of Germany create? My guess is it's somewhere between 2 and 10. But more on the low end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, in this case, you also have to consider Europe as a whole. Like we have Paris as a hub spot.
Paris is super big.
And things like that.
Yeah,
about us.
London.
Yeah.
But here again, Spain, France, and UK have these super hubs.
Yeah, centralized
economies. Same with the startup ecosystems. Not so much stuff happening outside of these super hubs.
True.
Which is not really healthy for a country as a whole.
Yeah.
When it comes to European hubs, I think every country should have at least 1 or 2 startup hubs.
Definitely.
And also competing against each other. And making it easier to expand from one country to the next. Whether it be from a bureaucratic perspective or funding from one government, from a different government. Once you want to enter, let's say you're a French startup and you want to enter the German market, that should also be incentivized by the German government.
Yeah.
Because that just leads to a more vibrant ecosystem as a whole. Yeah.
It's really interesting when you think about it with, okay, we need basically like 2 major hubs, let's say 3, 4 startup hubs. When you then challenge the society of, hey, we need more startup founders. Yeah. Whom are you actually addressing? Like, hey, why should I support, for instance, Hamburg in encouraging people to be more entrepreneurial when the actual hub is Berlin and Munich and you're supposed to go there? Yeah. There's a bit of a societal challenge and personal, let's say, opportunity costs, to encourage someone from Hamburg is the general challenge, that we encounter when we go into that direction.
I guess so. I also feel that people are more mobile than they used to be, especially young people. So moving from one place to another is not such a big deal. And when you look at I guess a good indicator of where hubs are is where the money goes. And last year, roughly 60% of the almost 300 founding rounds went to Berlin and Munich. But that's only 60%. 40% of the rounds went to startups that are situated somewhere else. Stuttgart, Frankfurt,
Karlsruhe,
that area.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking areas.
Yeah, sure.
Köln-Aachen, some Hamburg. So it's not like everyone needs to be in these hubs, but building this flywheel of founders, building companies, exiting these companies, reinvesting as angels, VCs coming in, that kind of stuff. I think that can only really happen at a couple of spots, not everywhere.
Yeah.
A good example of here, Nico and Alex from Simple Club.
Yeah.
They grew up in a small town, I think fairly close to Heidelberg, I'm not 100% sure, but they had no role models. They had no role models and they had no idea about how to build a business. I mean, they did it anyways, but they made a lot of mistakes and they're the exception. I mean, now they're based in Munich, basically, or distributed company. But if you grow up in an area where you have no role models of someone building a company successfully, that just makes it super hard for you to even get the idea and then execute on it.
Yeah. I really understand that because I come from a really, really remote place. Yes, out of Karlsruhe, so Karlsruhe is still cool, but as I said, not really many ways of getting in touch. This is actually a way of career.
Yes.
I didn't really have that. Someone came from Marsch, which is kind of close to Karlsruhe as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I went through the whole thing.
So that was
tiny place. You do not have to know it. That's the point. Okay. To wrap this thing up, after everything that we discussed, what would be your key takeaways for an early stage founder? Like, imagine someone just joining TUM, just joining university. I get the question of, hey, how I'm supposed to get in touch with everything about that because people do not know about all the support that's out there. What would be your recommendations in that regard?
Okay, so first I would argue find like-minded people. Surround yourself with people who also have the drive of building something. Because you need a good team. At some stage, you will need a good team. So surround yourself with the right people. Then find role models that can help you, people with experience. And there are ways of doing that by going to certain events, or just listening to podcasts and then reaching out to these people. My experience is that former founders, they have a weak spot for future founders. So even though they might be really busy, they will try to make time. Not everyone, but many will try to make time and help you. And that all is already helping you building a network, which will at some stage be really important. And then do research on what's out there, what resources are there to get you started. So in school, that might be Jugendgründet, or a bit later might be startup teams. Then there might be programs out there like Explore from Unternehmertum, which is a really early stage program. And then there's lots of governmental funding options like Exist and others that can help you get started without needing to invest your own money. So lots of resources out there. And then once you feel like, okay, I got great people here, I know some people in the ecosystem, think really hard about what you are passionate about. Solving your own problem is the biggest motivation of making it a business. So let's assume you are in a wheelchair, or you have a certain disease, and that is really impacting your life. If you solve for that, you will be much more passionate. You will have some credibility, of course, and people will be able to relate to what you're trying to do. Hopefully you're not disabled. Hopefully you don't have any disease. But think of a problem that you want to solve. And then make sure that others have that problem as well. It's great if you solve your own problem, but ideally it's something that many people have. The Moonshot Factory, they used the toothbrush test. I don't know if you've heard about that. Toothbrush test means it ideally used twice a day. I hope you're doing that.
Yeah.
And by billions of people. Okay, if that is something that the product is potentially able of doing, then it's worth exploring. So think about a problem, think about how you can solve it, and then ideally not incrementally by making it 10% better, make it 10x better. Because then you have a huge problem with huge potential, and you have a potentially very big impact with what you're doing. And I can tell you that if you have something like that, and you don't even know how to make money with it yet, you will get funding, because the opportunity is just so huge, potentially.
Yeah.
To quote either Sergey or Larry, I'm not sure, think about the user, everything else will follow. Okay?
I think this would be the perfect final sentence to set down for the podcast. But
Fine with me. Credits to our founders.
Yeah. But one more or two more things.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of founders that are particularly at this very spot. Like, okay, I found out I have a great team. We built something, and now we realize we need to pivot. Why? Because the problem we had assumed would be a bigger one is not big enough. It's you have your early stage people using it, your early adopters and stuff like that, but you cannot go through the gap basically to make this whole thing scale. One tip from your side: how to embrace a pivot.
Yeah, as I think already said in the beginning, fail, but fail fast. And a pivot, a startup without a pivot, that is, I wouldn't say unheard of, but it's rare. Again, coming back to Simple Club, they build a product for students, right? And they tried to get schools to pay for it. And that was hard because of bureaucracy and the German government and all that. And then they said, look, now rich parents are paying for the app, and the students that actually need it and can't afford it, they're not getting it. That's not what we wanted to build. And so they pivoted towards apprenticeships, where apprentices that have maybe used Simple Club in school are now using the app to learn the skills they need as a banking clerk or whatever, but the companies are paying for it. So they basically pivoted from B2C to B2B.
Yeah.
And that happens, and that's fine. I mean, you need to be flexible enough to do it, because if you're trying to, if you're not going to make it with that idea, you can either ignore it, put your head in the sand and run out of money, or you pivot early enough and find something different.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now, something that we started a few podcast sessions ago, something that's called a rapid fire.
Yeah, okay.
We're open for that. It's like 10 questions, 12 maybe.
Yes.
Single question, and you just answer on the spot.
Yeah.
You do not think a lot long about it. Are you ready for that? Are you open for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, and just spoilers alert, I threw in 2 questions that I missed answers for in your book.
Aha. Oh.
You set up there these amazing Steckbriefe,
Yes.
these check sheets for about all the founders, and there were 2 questions, and I thought, like, why are you not answering them yourself? I was missing. and I put them in there.
Okay,
And I really look forward to get an answer from them.
let's see if I have one.
Yeah, let's do. Okay, Gemini or GPT, which one do you use every day?
Gemini.
What's one tool you can't live without?
WhatsApp.
What's the biggest misconception about AI?
That you need to build it yourself.
Best tip you ever got?
The really important stuff happens at home.
Your personal myth buster?
That you need to know what you're doing before you start doing it.
A startup idea you'd fund instantly?
An idea that the founder is really convinced of, and I think he or she can deliver on it.
Your biggest failure, and what did you learn?
Alpine Air business.
Yeah.
That didn't take off. I should have surrounded myself with more people with technical knowledge and some customs knowledge, local customs knowledge in China.
Your favorite book as a child, and now?
Die unendliche Geschichte. And now it's das Glasperlenspiel.
What should founders stop doing right now?
Building their own AI.
What was your favorite game back then and now?
Back then it was Maniac Mansion,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's PUBG.
What's the most nerdy thing you own?
Well, I still own a couple of discs, 12 of Monkey Island.
And the biggest misconception about you?
So sometimes I can look and come across a little grumpy. Very often I'm just concentrated and thinking of stuff. So when you see me grumpy, don't be afraid to approach me. I'm usually just contemplating things.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. Axel, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for
My pleasure.
being with us for this interview. See you around here at CoLab.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm here every Wednesday. And if you have any questions, just feel free to approach me, even though I might not be smiling at the moment.
So you get a meeting with Google, Axel, here at CoLab every Wednesday. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.